Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar called CK-12, a solution for flexible learning. I'm Katie, and my colleague Lindsay and I will be guiding today's conversation about how CK-12 can be a solution for any educational situation, whether that's in-person learning, fully remote learning, homeschooling, or any hybrid or blended model of teaching and learning.
We are glad to have you with us today for this interactive session, and we want you to leave with practical strategies for implementing CK-12 in any educational context, either as your core curriculum or as a resource to supplement your current instruction. Now, CK-12 is a robust platform. Our goal in this session is to give you an introduction to the CK-12 Foundation and CK12.org, and to show you the power of our FlexBook 2.0 platform, plus all of the interactivity and related content that brings learning to life. I'll show you a variety of ways to access, share, and assign content to students, as well as how you can monitor their progress. We'll discuss strategies for implementation, whether you are doing in-person or fully remote instruction. And lastly, we'll make sure you leave knowing where to find additional help and support should you need it when exploring CK-12.
Now, before we get started today, let's make sure everyone is comfortable with the two Zoom windows that we use. You should see two different options. One is for Q&A and one is for chat. So during today's presentation, whenever you have a question you'd like the CK-12 team to answer, please post it in the Q&A window. That is the window we'll be monitoring throughout the presentation to make sure that we get to all of your questions. The chat window is already up and running, and it's a great place for a community conversation. We'd love for you all to introduce yourselves. Feel free to share where you live, the subject you teach, what your ideas are for all this crazy learning environment at this point in time. And just make sure in the chat window that you're sending any general posts to all panelists and attendees, not just to CK-12 or the panelists, because that's how it gets out to everyone.
We will break a few times to answer questions live, and then we'll also stay on at the end of the webinar to address any unanswered questions. I also want to mention that we're recording this webinar, and it will be available at ck12.org/webinars in the archived section in the next 24 hours if you want to revisit anything you learned today or share the presentation with a friend or colleague.
Now, for many of you, this webinar may be your first introduction to CK-12. But we've been the premier flexible learning solution since 2012, serving over 100 million users from around the world. We firmly believe that every student has a unique personalized learning journey, and we offer multiple pathways for students to learn in their own way. We're a nonprofit organization, and all of our resources, absolutely everything on CK-12 is free. You won't see any advertising on our site, and you'll never hit a paywall. CK-12 is proud to provide free access for all teachers and learners, giving you the tools and resources you need to seamlessly transition between in-person and remote schooling.
Yeah, that's the benefit to using CK-12. We will be your partner for whatever plans your school or district throws at you this year. I loved this quote that was sent to us by one of our CK-12 certified educators in Kansas. Sherry said, "Because I've been using CK-12 these last few years, my students are having no problems transitioning to online learning. The easy integration with Google Classroom makes it possible for me to assign anything easily. The videos and Plix options that show up along the sides of my posted reading have my students investigating further than I even ask of them. I'm so thankful for this resource and the time I spent 2 summers ago becoming a certified educator." So I think that sentiment really encapsulates a lot of the messages that we received this spring, this summer from educators who have been using CK-12 and are just really pleased with the seamless transition it's been as they're doing a blend of options going into this next school year. So this is a year where everyone has to be flexible and reimagine what learning looks like for students. And we just want you to know that we at CK-12 are here to help. So what specifically are we offering you? Quite simply, we're offering the highest quality content that's accessible across every platform and device, from Chromebooks to smartphones to tablets to desktop computers. Customized FlexBooks can be downloaded as PDFs as well for those needing static copies or offline access, although we certainly think the best experience is always online with the latest offerings and adaptive learning.
So when you arrive at CK-12, and I believe I misspoke, I meant for the last 12 years, so since before 2008, we have been offering all of these opportunities, and it keeps growing. Here you'll see that the bulk of our resources fall within the branches of math and science. We offer comprehensive coverage for middle and high school math and science with our newest interactive FlexBooks, attached adaptive practice, related content such as videos, interactives, and real-world applications. We do have some math adaptive practice at the elementary level and offer elementary science readers. We also have some college FlexBooks and content that goes beyond the STEM subject areas. I encourage you to check out our newest Flexlets that were developed this summer to help fill in student learning gaps and get them prepared for the upcoming year by studying the key concepts in a variety of math and science subjects. All of the resources on CK-12 can be used as is, or you can customize content to meet the needs of your standards and your community.
We actually have an entire section of our site that is dedicated to sharing the content our users customize and create. Like Katie just said, while CK-12 only offers a few FlexBooks in the area of language arts, for instance, we do have schools and districts who've created books on our site that are ready to be used by you. So don't be afraid to use the search bar for any subject or topic and click over to that Community Contributed tab to see what we offer. And then the schools page is another great place to see content created in a region near you. This is the magic to CK-12. You can use the power of the CK-12 platform to customize, create, and curate your own content. So when schools started to shut down in March due to coronavirus, the Merced County Office of Education in California needed a way to organize and deliver content to the 22 districts that it serves, and they needed to do it quickly. So what's pretty amazing is that within a matter of weeks, they built their own FlexBooks on CK-12 using teacher-created materials as well as other resources that they curated from open educational sources. They embedded videos from their own YouTube channel, and they even attached a customized quiz to each of their lessons. Then the 22 districts had access to quality content that they could use for online or in-person instruction with their students. So I just use them as one of many examples of what is possible if you get the right people around the table who are willing to reimagine what good virtual education looks like.
Now, as you're finding resources that you like on CK-12, you can add them to your library or copy and paste the URL and share the resources with others. But if you want to assign the work to students, you can receive feedback on how they did. And you can do this by creating a CK-12 class or using one of our integrated learning management systems. That's right, CK-12 works seamlessly with the classes that you have already created in Google Classroom, Canvas, and Schoology, making it easy for you to assign work and view insights and reports without needing to create duplicate classes on CK-12. You could also use Clever and ClassLink to log in easily, and you'll find some CK-12 content in Edmodo and Kiddo.
If you're using CK-12 classes or Google Classroom to assign work, simply click on the Assign to Class button on any lesson or resource. You can pick which platform you want, and then choose your class or classes, a due date, and assign away. Students should then see the assignment in their CK-12 or Google class and be able to complete it there. Just make sure they click the Turn In button after they've saved their work. If you're somebody who's using Canvas or Schoology, once you integrate CK-12 into those platforms, you can find content under external tools in Canvas assignments or in the CK-12 app when adding materials in Schoology. All assignments and viewing of progress for those should be done within those learning management systems. So today isn't about doing a deep dive into Google Classroom, Canvas, or Schoology. I know there's a lot of interest in those. We just wanted to mention that we do integrate. And I also want to say that we have some upcoming webinars specifically on those topics. So we encourage you to join webinars this month of August, or you can always view our most recent recordings on our archive site about how to get started. Okay, so once students have turned in anything that you've assigned, you're able to see their scores show up in a CK-12 class report, or the matching report within an LMS. If you open up the full report, which you can do from Google Classroom and Canvas and soon for Schoology, you'll see more details, including skill levels for practice and the actual questions students have answered. You'll notice here that practice and quizzes have scores included, but all other modalities are for learning and have a complete or incomplete grade, either a check mark in CK-12 or full or no credit in an LMS.
Now, if you assign a lesson from a FlexBook 2.0, you can also see our quick insights by opening up that lesson from the matching assignment page. These include the time a student spent on that page, including a histogram of where they spent that time. Plus, you can see the skill level for practice, or a matching percentage if you attached a quiz instead. For science, you might even see paragraph mapping that highlights key ideas students missed when completing the practice. And we just released a new engagement score as well, so you'll start seeing that included along with other insights and recommendations as those go live in the future.
Okay, so now that you understand a little more about who CK-12 is and what we offer, I'd like to go live to the site and show you a demo of our FlexBook 2.0 platform to show you how we bring content to life. While I'm transitioning over, Katie, do you have an eye on the Q&A window? Is there anything we should address right now?
Yeah, so we've gotten a couple questions about other integrated platforms. The ones that we mentioned are the ones that are currently integrated. You're always welcome to share via a URL in the other platforms, and then just create a class on CK-12 to track that progress. And then another question that came up that I know comes up regularly is about audio functions. It sounds like someone used some Meet options for Google Meet to get audio text read to students. There are some great Chrome extensions that are really helpful, and districts have used those to do read aloud for our text because it's all website based, it's all HTML5 based. So those should work for you if you need support for students for reading.
Awesome. Okay, so keep your questions coming in. Let me do just kind of a tour of CK-12 for you, and specifically, we're going to jump into a FlexBook 2.0 lesson. We told you that absolutely everything on CK-12 is free. We just ask that at some point you create an account or that you sign in so that our intelligent platform can do the intelligent things it's capable of doing, including, you're able to put some things into your library, you're able to customize content, and our system can make recommendations for you based on what you're doing. So you would want to sign in. I'm signed into a demo account. That's actually the teacher version. You'll notice that we have a slightly different homepage for a teacher versus a student. We largely surface the same materials. We just do it a little differently because students like that big search bar right in the middle and often have a class code that they're joining. I'm going to switch back to the teachers. Teachers, we give a little more information about subjects and standards and things like that. Lots of different ways to explore our content. If you've scrolled down, you're seeing, oh, what do I want to teach today? We can also explore by some of our products. My favorite way to navigate CK-12 is actually through this Explore menu up at the top. I just find it's a really easy way to, see the different offerings that CK-12 has, and I could jump into any of these specifically. So we're going to look at a FlexBook 2.0, but when I mentioned the schools page, you've got a quick link to that here. We're going to go over what adaptive practice simulations and PLIX look like, and you've got browse pages for all three of those. The discussion cafe, for those of you interested in standards information, you can view that here. I know somebody was asking about the Certified Educator Program or the webinars. All that's found under the Explore menu. So I encourage you to check that out. And then we mentioned earlier that you can search for any concept in the search bar. I'm going to search for water cycle. And when you search, you're going to get a lot of CK-12 content here for water cycle. I've got filter options over on the left So I could filter by grade. I don't always find that to be the most effective way to find content. Often if I'm looking for a video, if I know I'm looking for a real world application, I will use the categories to limit my searches. And then what we were trying to tell you earlier is that CK-12 content is here on the CK-12 tab, but you can always flip over to community contributed and see what our users have put on our site as well. Okay, I'm gonna press the CK-12 logo here and go back to the home page. And let's jump into one of our subjects. So I'm gonna go down to physical science, and we're gonna open up a FlexBook. So here I am in the physical science for middle school FlexBook 2.0 on CK-12. We've got a little information about that book, and then I could open up any of these sections here and see the chapter and then see the individual lessons within that section. I'm gonna go down to 1310 today. We're gonna talk about levers. So notice when I clicked into the lesson on levers, I'm taken to what we call the start page. And here before a student is even thrown into the lesson, they're presented with other ways to learn. You'll get used to seeing these icons across our site. This is a simulation, this is a Plix, we have a couple of videos, and a real world application. So these other ways to learn can be used for previewing content, reviewing content, extension activities for students who need to go beyond what they're learning. Just know that these have been curated by our team and are here to closely connect the lesson of lever. And then once I start, I'm taken to the actual lesson. And I'm just gonna scroll down and kind of show you what a lesson looks like. Usually opens with an image and often has kind of a bigger thinking question at the top. You'll notice that we have some vocabulary words that if I clicked on any of these, I would be taken to concept pages for those different topics. Videos are embedded. You can embed videos you've created or videos that you've curated from places like YouTube or Vimeo. You can have charts and graphs and tables. And then here is a simulation ready to launch, some more questions, a Plix ready to launch, and then some summary and review questions down here at the bottom. So that's kind of the typical flow of a lesson. While I'm down here, I want to show you a couple of things. One thing that you can do with our FlexBooks that you can't do with a lot of other content is instantly change it into other languages. So using this Google Translate button at the bottom of any of our pages, I'm going to go ahead and click on Spanish. I can instantly change the language, both the menus and the content here into another language. This is huge for students getting support from parents at home who maybe English isn't their first language. You've got all these options to choose from. It's Google Translate, but it's getting better by the minute. So know that that is there for you. I'm going to switch it back into English. And then one of the awesome things about a FlexBook 2.0 lesson is that we've provided the interactive content, and then we've also already attached adaptive practice to it. So our adaptive practice is set up where students are trying to get 10 questions correct. Okay, I'm signed in as a teacher, so it's just gonna let me preview this, but let me show you real quick of what practice looks like. So here I'm in the practice module, and I've got 0 out of 10 correct so far. Again, that's always my goal, is to get 10 correct. It's gonna come up with a skill level meter for me as I start working. We have a scratch pad where students can write or diagram. We've got hints available because this is practice. We're trying to help students learn and get better with concepts. So they can come in here and they can find a hint and then start answering the questions. I'm just going to type in not a correct answer. You'll notice that we try to stay positive and all experts start as beginners. Or it's asking me, you know, hey, do you need some more refreshers on this practice? I'm able to try again. But this is the practice, the practice module for students. I'm going to go ahead and stop this for now just to take us back into the lesson. But know that as students are working on that, they would get a report for how they're doing with their progress. And then if you as a teacher had assigned this FlexBook 2.0 lesson to your students, if you press this assign button, you would be able to see their progress as well. Okay. Let me scroll back up. I mentioned that we had a PLIX here. PLIX is an interactive from CK-12 that stands for Play, Learn, Interact, Explore. And we have about 1,200 of these on our sites across all the branches of math and science. And they're set up with a interactive where you are usually, manipulating a red dot, dragging something. I'm able to move the different elements around. And then there are challenge me questions. There are usually 5 or 6 questions. They could be true, false, drag, drop, multiple choice, choose all that apply. Once again, you've got hints here because this is a learning tool. We're trying to help students experiment and get better with a concept. They could also, learn more about what's happening in the interactive if they need some help as well. But these are what we call PLIX. And so you can assign a PLIX as its own thing. You could take the URL for this PLIX and you could share it with your students, or you could always assign it. And here it's just part of that FlexBook 2.0 lesson. So when I close out of this PLIX, I'm taken right back into my lesson here. And that's kind of how our simulation is going to work here. Our simulations we have in the areas of physics and chemistry, but really there's a lot of concepts that are universal and can translate to so many different subject areas and grade levels. But our simulations, they're a little more advanced than the PLIX as far as the animations and what students are able to do with them. But they all open up with this like introductory question of, can Sarah lift her mother on a seesaw? And there's an introductory video. And then I'm gonna go ahead and skip ahead just for time's sake here. And then they're taken to a sandbox. So how awesome is this, that they're able to manipulate the distance here from the fulcrum. We can manipulate the mother's weight, and you can see what happens with the seesaw as these elements change. We have worksheets, tutorial videos, all kinds of things that go with our simulations. So again, you can find those individually on our Sims browser, or you're going to find them embedded right here within our interactive FlexBook 2.0 lessons. A few other things, we do have highlighting tools. So I know for some of you, it's important for students to still be able to highlight and add notes. So you could also add a note. And this is saved in an individual student's account. So you as a teacher don't automatically see this, but students, as they're taking notes, they'll be able to review before a quiz or before a test, because this is all saved within their account. Like I said, you can either take this URL and share it if you just post links to content somewhere. But if you want to get feedback on how students did with this practice and how they engaged with the lesson, you would want to assign this. We give you the options for a CK-12 class or a Google Classroom, or like we said, if you're using Canvas or Schoology, you would go in through those applications. Don't neglect your toolbar over here. The toolbar is very powerful. This is where you'd be able to see insights on how your students performed. Under related content, you're going to see those same options that were presented on the start menu. And I could click into any of these and assign these individually to my students as well. I'm able to see the notes and highlighting that I did. So here's the highlights, here's the notes. Those would just keep compiling as I interacted. I could attach resources as a teacher if I needed to. And then there are a bunch of action items, again, assigning and sharing to class. And then you do have options for things like display setting. I know it's really important for accessibility for students to be able to choose what they want their screen to look like. So know that that's all there under your toolbar as well. If I go back out, I can use the table of contents over here on the left, or I can just click back on my book and know that you've got options to add your book to the library. This one's already in the library. Or if I was interested in taking this book and rearranging it, maybe deleting some chapters, adding in some of my own chapters, pressing the customize button would be what would kickstart that process. Okay, so that's a super quick overview, but I hope it gives you some ideas and gets you excited about our FlexBooks and shows you what you can do with the 2.0 platform. So Katie, let's stop and take a few questions before we talk more strategies.
Sure. So we have a bunch of questions about LMS again. Not surprising. That's one of the big ones. For Google Classroom, you would create, like if you're using CK-12 classes, you can use CK-12 classes, totally fine. If you are using Google Classroom, one of the other options, then you would assign that content there and you'd see all that progress there. You're not going to use both. You only want to pick one because that will help clarify. And as Lindsay's showing you on our webinars page, there are webinars on there. We're actually doing one on Google Classroom specifically tomorrow, so we can drill down on all those pieces because this is kind of a quick overview. So that's one thing to keep in mind as you go through. We had a bunch of questions on standards. So maybe if we can go back to that book that you were just on, we can show you, you can see standards alignment there. It will pop up, it will align the standards for Common Core and NGSS based on the unit or section and how those relate. So you'll see some different options there. We also have a standards browser under the Explore option up at the top there that you can click on, and that maps our concepts. So any individual section to Common Core Math or NGSS Science for middle school and high school at this point in time. So you can kind of see how those relate and work around there. So that's one option for standards pieces. And then one more question on assignments. I know there's a couple of questions on customization, and if we can dig into that maybe at the end of this. But for assignments, anything you assign that you want to grade for, you do need to assign separately. So the lessons, if you were assigning one of these 2.0 lessons right here, you would be assigning this lesson with the attached practice or quiz. But if there's something in that related content that you also wanted to assign, you'd want to assign that as a separate component in order to get an additional grade for that. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind as you go from there. And I think with that, maybe we'll jump into some strategies. You guys can keep the questions coming. Our team's doing a great job answering them. And we will circle back and answer some more of those at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we are going to get started on this. So as we said, we wanted this to not just be about what CK-12 offers, but really how CK-12 can be that solution. So a few strategies that we want to go through, regardless of learning context. The first thing is that we recommend you use FlexBooks 2.0 as your primary mode of instruction, because this allows your students to shift from in-class learning to remote learning and back again without any issue. We had some great teachers that were already using CK-12 where that transition this spring was a lot smoother because they were able to quickly transition and still keep that 2.0 FlexBook as their core method of curriculum and learning. Now we've integrated the best of CK-12 into those lessons, and you can get meaningful insights that we talked about on how the students engaged with that and how they performed on the adaptive practice regardless of where they are doing that work. So consider starting the year with an interactive digital book, whether that's one that you find that CK-12 has made or the community. You are welcome to use it as is, and then take the time to customize the scope and sequence of the book and localize the content specifically for your students over months or years, or not at all if you like it how it is. FlexBooks can be updated at any time throughout the year if you want to make modifications and changes, so no worries about needing to do that right away. And the other thing is that parents are able to get involved with this learning process because they have easy access to the digital book. And remember that other languages are accommodated through the Google Translate option, and anyone can set those, whether a parent or a student or a teacher, kind of when they access it. So go ahead and share your book and they can adjust as needed.
One of the best ways to check student progress is by assigning adaptive practice, either through a FlexBook 2.0 lesson, or you can go to our practice browser at ck12.org/practice and assign individually from there. But let our adaptive practice system do the heavy lifting for you, offering student recommendations in the moment if they're struggling. Again, it's going to get progressively harder for students who are more advanced, or it's going to remediate for students who need to drop down to some easier questions to build their confidence. And then our system is going to jump in with recommendations in the moment as we see fit for each student. If you want to create your own questions and assignments, you're able to set up what we call a quiz on CK-12, and you can also assign that to your students or embed it as inline questions that you're seeing in some of our FlexBooks.
Now, our interactives, both our simulations and Plix, are great for online and in-person instruction. They help preview, reinforce, and review concepts. Many teachers choose to begin their class with a Plix as a bell ringer activity. Students can then work individually or in partners to answer the challenge questions. Our simulations open with a broad question relating to a real-world situation. And if you're in person with your students, consider starting class with a simulation projected on the board and discuss student ideas before proceeding with the activity. Students engaging with a simulation at home have access to a video tutorial, slider-based questions, and extension activities to reinforce their learning.
Our concept pages that you can find through search, or that start page that's at the beginning of any FlexBook 2.0 lesson, these have curated modalities to allow students to learn their own way. So think about giving students the choice of how they want to learn a concept. These curated modalities include videos, real-world applications, interactive study guides, and more. Grab the URL to a concept page and share it with your students. Or again, you can always assign individual modalities if you want a report on their progress.
Now, remote learning doesn't mean isolated learning. Students can collaborate with other users from around the world in the CK-12 Cafe, a discussion forum for answering questions and sharing thoughts on math and science concepts. We encourage your students to take part in the conversation.
Okay, so right now we're going to do a last call for questions coming into Q&A. We've been showing you the site for about 30 minutes now, and we're going to give you a chance to ask any additional questions you have for the team. And Katie's going to do a little bit of wrap-up information here about help and support, and I'll check out that Q&A window and see what we can stay on to answer at the end of the presentation.
Thanks, Lindsay. So today's webinar was a really quick tour of what CK-12 has to offer. If you want to learn more about our platform and resources, or would like an easy page to share with your colleagues, you can go to ck12.org/overview. There's also a quick brochure that's available for you to download as a PDF. The testimonials page found in the footer under the Explore menu, or at ck12.org/testimonials, is another place to hear from students and educators about CK-12 products and how they are being used in the classroom. Having traveled around the country for the last few years, we have a variety of stories, reasons to use CK-12, and strategies for implementation that others have shared with us. Feel free to browse or filter based on role or topic. If you need additional assistance as you are exploring CK-12, visit ck12.org/help for quick articles and tips for using CK-12. Now, during the month of August, we'll be running a full series of learning management system webinars, starting with CK-12 in Google Classroom tomorrow at 11 a.m. PDT. Now, that's Pacific time, so that would be what? 2 p.m. East Coast time for all of you trying to translate that in your head. The following week, on Thursday the 13th, we'll be sharing our integration with Canvas. And then on Thursday the 20th, we'll be talking about CK-12 and Schoology. So registration and archived recordings can be found on our webinars page at ck12.org/webinars. And you can open those directly from within that page, or click and open them in YouTube and access our full YouTube channel, where you'll also see some quick overview videos that I know a couple people asking for really specific walkthroughs. That might be a great resource for you as well. Now, we are relaunching our brand new self-paced certified educator program this month. If you were intrigued by what you saw today and want to dive deeper into all of CK-12's tools and resources, consider joining a community of educators becoming certified at no cost and on their own schedule. You'll be receiving an email soon from us regarding the program launch, and you can find a chance to pre-register or go ahead and join once it's live at ck12.org/certified. Now, don't forget to let your social networks know about CK-12. You can like our Facebook page and share content with your friends from @CK12 Foundation. And we're on Twitter at @CK12 Foundation, because social media is a great way to find and share resources and strategies for addressing learning both in person and online. So I want to say thank you to all who joined us today. We're going to stay on and answer a bunch of questions, so go ahead and put those in there. But if you need to bounce out, you're more than welcome to head out if you've gotten all of your questions answered. Otherwise, we're going to jump in. And Lindsay, what do we have for some questions?
Oh, so many questions are coming in, which is awesome. Again, our team is frantically typing answers to them. We do have a lot of requests for demos, so we'll try to accommodate a few of them right now. I'm going to take the screen back from Katie. One thing that I did want to mention is that if you've never checked out CK-12 Foundation on YouTube, we do post all of our videos here. So if you scroll, one thing that Katie's been working hard on is coming up with some quick overview videos on just like short minute or two videos on doing simple things on CK-12. So this might be a great place for you to get started. We did a webinar yesterday that was fantastic with students talking about their thoughts on the upcoming school year, and really, really valuable information there. Or again, you guys who are asking about, okay, I want to know how to customize a FlexBook. We've got an hour webinar that's totally dedicated to customizing FlexBooks and then customizing adaptive practice into quizzes. So I hate leaving you hanging on information that I know you're wanting today, but please know that there's lots of resources here, and then we are available to help you. One of the things that was asked was about creating something new. So in your library, everybody has a library, there's this create new button, and I could create a new FlexBook 2.0 if I wanted to create my own book from scratch. Or those of you who are curious about our quizzes, you could select a quiz, and again, you're going to be taken into our quiz module here, and I'm able to give it a title and add some questions and do some settings here. Big topic, but the basic answer to that question was you go to your library and you can create a new quiz. The other way that you can customize practice is that this adaptive practice here, notice that I'm able to download a worksheet of the adaptive practice. It won't be adaptive, it'll lose that intelligence that we're using to serve up students' questions. But if you just need a hard copy of it, you can download it. Or if I customize from the adaptive practice, notice that it's already grabbed 20 of those 75 questions on geometric translation and started my quiz for me. And then these quizzes can be assigned through CK-12, through an LMS, or they can be used as inline questions. Katie, I'll let you jump in for a second.
Sure. We had a question on student privacy. We take student privacy very seriously. We've signed a student privacy pledge, and we work with schools and districts to address that if they have any questions. So yes, we do everything we can to keep that safe and accurate. So if you have more questions, you're welcome to email us on that piece. It's probably one of them. And then we had a bunch of different questions about other integrations and pieces. So just keep in mind, as we said, the three clean ones are Google Classroom, Canvas, and Schoology that are fully integrated for assignments. And then if you're using something like Clever, there's not really much more than just using that as a way to access CK-12, but you would still need to use CK-12 classes or one of the other three options for grades and assignments as you go from there.
Okay, I'm seeing several questions about classes and reports. So there's a CK-12 class option where if you're a Google Classroom, Canvas, Schoology person, you would not be setting up a CK-12 class. But if you're homeschooling, need a learning management system, working with your own students, we're a great option here. I'm going to jump into a winter 2020 class. We had some interns just kind of populate some work for us. And when I click on the report is something that's universal. You're going to see this in Google Classroom and in Canvas and very soon in Schoology. But this is what a report looks like, where I can tell at the top what it was that was assigned, what type of activity that it was. And you can see here the difference on reporting is something like a video or a simulation. If that's assigned to a student, we can only tell you if the student accessed it or if they started manipulating some of those variables in the sandbox. So it's more of a completion checkmark score. Now, if you create your own quiz on CK-12, you're going to be able to see exactly what the student got correct, what they missed. Here I can see that there were 6 out of 8 correct. Time spent was 2 minutes. And then I could scroll down and I could get the granular information on exactly what the student answered and what the student missed. So we're trying to give you both. We're trying to give you the high level, at a glance student information, and then also you're able to drill into any of these scores. Like this is on practice where, oh, this is me on practice. So I answered 10 of 12 questions correct. It gives you the breakdown of easy, medium, and hard questions. And then you could scroll down and you could see what I missed. So that's a report.
Lindsay, while you're on there, maybe you could open up the assignment tab and show that insights piece one more time.
Yeah, so when I've got an assignment, let me go to this 2.0 with a quiz. If I click on the assignment, and again, this looks a little different if you're in a learning management system, I'm taken to the lesson, the FlexBook 2.0 lesson that I assigned to my students. And in the toolbar, this top option is Insights. And I'm able to pick the class that I assigned this to. So I assigned it to my Winter 2020 class. And I can see at a glance who has completed the practice that's associated, or sorry, the quiz that I'd attached to this lesson. So I'm gonna see how Stephen did. I can see that Stephen got 6 out of 8 correct. Didn't really spend any time on the lesson. We provide a histogram over here on the left that shows you how long the student spent at, which part of the lesson. Let's see if anybody, oh, this might have been, oh, me, here we go. I spent 2 minutes and 20 seconds on this lesson. So you can see, again, where I spent the majority of my time. And then this engagement score is something that is brand new that we're releasing, that's going to give you an idea of how much the students interacted with the things on the page. Did they watch the video? Did they do the clicks? So we're adding insights all the time to let you know how your students are performing.
Great. We had a question about resuming an assignment. For practice, they can save their work and come in and out of it all they want. If you create a quiz, you have the option to allow them to pause and resume their work, or require them to do it in one sitting. So there's both options there. And then Lindsay, we have a question about printing content from a 2.0 FlexBook. Maybe you want to take that one.
Yeah, so our 2.0, go back out to 2.0 FlexBook. Our content is available for you to print if you have customized it. So I'm going to find something in my library. Let me see. Let me go to this Earth Science for Middle School book. I'm going to go to the latest version of this book. And if I customize this book, we didn't really get into customizing because, again, this is a pretty big topic, but I'm able to delete different content. I'm able to rearrange, drag and drop, do that at the chapter level or within the lesson. But basically, I've made a copy of this book that is in my library, and I can now download this as a PDF. So if you need to download a static copy of your book, CK-12 will email you a way to get a copy of your PDF.
Lindsay, we have 2 quiz questions in terms of like specifics. I'm more than happy to do that, or you can grab those, whichever is easier for showing inline questions and quizzes.
Just the basics is, I think I showed you guys of like how you would set up a quiz is you would give a title, add a description, and then choose some of your settings over here, like how many attempts, whether you want students to be able to pause and resume, like if it's more of a homework situation than a quiz. And then you add question sets. So you're either adding questions from our question bank, or you're creating new questions from our question editor. And then how you get those into your book as inline questions of, if we have a quiz set up here, let me find a quiz. I'm able to open up this quiz, and under my options here, under these 3 dots, these ellipses, I could download as a PDF if I needed to, but you've got the option to embed as inline questions. So if I choose to embed as inline questions, looks like it's showing up blank. Oh, no, there we go. So this was just a 3-question quiz that's set up, but I'm able to copy this iframe here. I can copy this and I could go into a FlexBook lesson and I could embed those inline questions. And what that's going to look like, our math books are really great with having these interactive embedded, let's pull up something like angles and triangles, inline questions here. If you take a quiz and then you use that embed code, this is what an inline question looks like, where you're going to be able to answer questions, check it, and then the cool thing about inline questions is that we really encourage you to give feedback on not just why the answer was incorrect, but also why answers are correct. So it's really a self-study tool for students.
I think our team has done a great job going through those questions. If you have any additional ones, you're welcome to email us at support@ck12.org. So with this, we'll sign off and we hope to see you in a future webinar.